back to the channel. I just got some walnut and maple in. I think I'm going to make a cutting board. Alright, so the surface is a little bit rough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it through the thickness plater, get it nice and smooth on both sides. Okay, now that I've got them all smooth on both sides, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them to length and then I'll run them through the table saw. Okay, so I've set my rib fence at 1.5 inches. I want the cutting board to be at least over 1.25 inches thick. Makes it nice and bulky. So I set it at 1.5 inches so that when I get done planing it again after it's all put together, that we're still over 1.25 inches of cutting board thickness. So this is one of those things on the table saw that you want to really be careful about, because you're making several repetitive cuts in a row and it proposes kind of a safety issue. So here's the thing where you really got to pay attention, doing one cut after another. I'm going to use my push block so that I don't get my hands any close or very close to the blade, and just be very careful. All right, so that's it. Everything's tightened up, wiped off the excess glue, and I use just packing tape on the inside of the cowls here so the glue doesn't stick to that. Of course, sticking the plywood cowls to the board, to the hardwood board, and that's it. I just snugged them up. You don't want to tighten them down too far. You don't want to squeeze out all the glue, of course. You want it to get a nice set. I'm going to leave this probably overnight, 8 hours. I don't think you have to leave it that long. I just feel more comfortable like that, and tomorrow I'll glue up the other board. Okay, the glue up came out real good, and the next thing is to plane the glued up cutting board flat on both sides so it makes a nice smooth surface before sanding. Alright, so the next step is to cut the end square, and the better option would be to use a cross-cut sled on the table saw, but I don't have miter slots on my table saw, so I'm going to use the miter saw. I'll probably have to make a cut from each end, just line it up the best that I can, and then the rest of it I'll have to sand if there's a little lip or something, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so what I have here is a little divot in the board almost where the knot was. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it in with CA glue and then spray it with some accelerator so it hardens right away. There's a little hole here too, and it'll dry clear and it'll look just fine. It'll sand out real nice. So that's what I'm going to do. Really easy and simple. I'm going to load it up with that CA glue, and then I'm going to put a little one in that hole there. That way it seals up, and it is food grade, so we should be all set. And just going to spray some accelerator on it. Going to let it dry, and it should sand out really nice. Okay, so what I'm going to do next, I'm going to put a nice chamfer on the edges here to just flatten them out, smooth them out. I'm going to use my trim router. Should work real good. Now, if I had a lot more to do at one time, I'd probably just use the router table, but I figured I'd use the trim router on this because I just had these two boards to do. Next, I'm going to do some sanding. Okay, so I've sanded these cutting boards down to 400 grit, which I know is probably a little bit excessive, but I like to sand them down till they almost shine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop the grain. I'm going to take some water, and I'm going to put quite a bit of water on both the boards, and then let it dry. And what's going to happen is the grain is going to pop up, and I'm going to sand it back down. And the reason that I do this is I don't want that happening when somebody wipes off the board with a wet rag, or juices from the meat that you're cutting or the vegetables that you're cutting on the board soak into the board and pop the grain out. So I want to do that pre-finishing so it doesn't happen after I finish. So I'm going to go ahead and just take a wet rag and I'm going to put a bunch of water on there, and it'll soak it up pretty rapidly, you'll see. And do it on both of these. I've seen some people dunk the whole board in water, which I guess you could do. I don't see that it's necessary. So I'm just gonna wet down both sides, and you can feel it already that it's kind of making the grain come up. Doesn't take long, and it probably won't take very long to dry either, but I just want to make sure that it's completely dry before I sand it again. And I'll just go over it once again with the 400, and it takes it down quick. You don't have to go over it very much for it to take that grain back down and make it all smooth. And you can almost see here that when I put the water on it, it's giving a real nice shine to it already, and that's without even putting the oil finish on it or anything like that. So I'm just going to let these dry, and then I'm going to sand them again, and we should be ready to put the finish on both these boards. Okay, so I've popped the grain on both of these boards. I'm ready to do the final sand, but first what I'm going to do is I'm going to brand them with my company logo. And it's really easy to do. You just got to get it heated up enough. I use a propane torch. And there's the brand. All right, the best part of making the cutting board is putting on the mineral oil. It totally changes the way the wood looks. I'm going to show you right here. It's amazing. So I'm going to use some food grade Ultra Pro white mineral oil, and I'm going to put a coat on, let it seep in, and then put another coat, and I'll do it about 3 times. So it really soaks up that mineral oil. And on top of that, after I'm done with that, I'll put some board butter on. I'll put the feet in and it should be all set. I love to watch the wood just soak that mineral oil up. Okay, so the mineral oil has soaked in real well, and now I'm going to just put on these little rubber feet. The hardware on them are stainless steel, so you don't have to worry about them getting wet or anything like that on the kitchen counter. They go in fairly easy in the holes that I pre-drilled, and I'll just screw all 4 of them in. Alright, and the very last step on the board is I'm going to put some Outlaws board butter. It's a mixture of beeswax and mineral oil, and it's all food grade. You use a clean rag, and you can just work it in. And this is good to put on every once in a while. You can just buff it, gets nice and shiny, gives it a real good finish. And again, everything is food grade that we've used on this cutting board. And there it is, came out really good. That's it for this project. I'll be on to my next project very soon. Please like and subscribe, and God bless.